No mai, haere mai, welcome and warm Pacific greetings. I'm Kate, and in this video we're going to kōrero about pacing, finding your baseline of energy and how to pace your daily activities. Pacing is one of the key tools that you can use to reduce your long COVID or ME/CFS symptoms. It allows you to prioritise the important activities in life so that you can enjoy more time with your whānau, tamariki and moko. Using the tools in this video will help give you a sense of control. Over time, you may be able to slowly increase your list of things that you can do in a day within the energy that you have available. It's important to remember that without pacing, you may make your illness more severe and delay any potential for improvement. We know this is the case for ME/CFS, and the symptoms are very similar to those of long COVID.
We do know what can work well for ME, and that is pacing. And if right from the very beginning you listen to your body and you allow yourself to slow down within all the constraints that I understand of being needing to provide for yourself and your family, having to work, having to earn an income, if you can take it as easy as you can, if you can pace your life, we do know you're much less likely to be tipped over into what we in the ME community will call severe illness. And we do know that it's much easier to recover from, for example, a moderate state to get back to a mild state rather than those people who have become bedridden.
So what is pacing? First, I'll start with a short story about two friends and a bunch of spoons. Two good friends catch up at a cafe for coffee. One asks the other, "So what's it actually like living with a chronic illness?" Having tried to explain her illness over and over again, but people not understanding, she tries to take a different approach. She grabs all the spoons from tables nearby and puts them in a pile. She says to her friend, "Imagine if everything you do costs you spoons. If you shower, that's 1 spoon." She removes 1 spoon from the pile. "If you work for 2 hours, that's 5 spoons. She removes 5 spoons from the pile. Healthy people generally have unlimited spoons. They can do everything that time allows during their day. But people living with post-viral illnesses like long COVID or ME/CFS only have a small number of spoons per day. So we have to make choices. I love catching up with you, but that costs me 4 spoons, so I wasn't able to do my household jobs today, and I'll need to rest when I get home." This is a true story, and the origin of the term spoon theory. If you have long COVID, you may only have 10 spoons available each day. If you use more than 10, you'll begin to experience PEM, Post Exertional Malaise, and your symptoms could get worse. We talked about PEM in video 2, which you can jump back to. But just to recap, post-exertional malaise simply means that after activity, you'll have a general feeling of illness or weakness.
You feel an overwhelming sense of fatigue. But when I say this, it's not just I went for a run and now I'm naturally tired. This is fatigue well above and beyond what your actual exertion would have caused. And this could happen within hours of the exercise itself or the exertion itself, or it could actually happen within 72 hours of that. And your symptoms can then wax and wane from there, so they can get a little bit better and then something really small can trigger this.
Pacing has been huge. So originally, it's sort of set out your day depending on how your sleep had gone or what you had on that day. And I think it was one of the parents that I was talking to at school. She introduced me to the spoon theory to help sort of, plan out your day, but also to communicate to others where you were at with your energy levels, and then just going through like that. Now I pace, but differently, in that it's a routine now. I've learned the limitations of my body now. I know cause and effect a lot more, and I've gotten into a rhythm. And with that, I'm able to judge what I can and can't do.
So what has the spoon theory got to do with pacing? Pacing is simply identifying how much you can do in a day, i.e. the number of spoons you have. This is called your baseline. We recommend doing slightly less than your baseline to avoid PEM, and we'll korero more about finding your baseline soon. First, let's talk about activities that trigger PEM and symptoms. In some people, even a small amount of activity or stress can trigger symptoms. A delayed response can make it difficult to recognise PEM, at least initially. So tracking your symptoms will help you see patterns, understand your triggers, and identify what activities you need to pace. A delayed response often happens because your body is running on adrenaline, particularly if the activity is exciting or enjoyable. When the adrenaline runs out, your symptoms become much worse. This is often referred to as a crash. Some people with post-viral illnesses constantly live in a cycle of doing too much, crashing as a result, and needing to rest. This prevents the tinana, body, from healing and recovering. It also doesn't feel good to crash all the time. But the good news is that you can prevent this with pacing.
I was crashing quite regularly, and I thought, what am I not listening to here? So as weird as this sounds, my eyes get extremely irritated, and then the next thing that happens is that I'm not sleeping properly, and then I may have another disruption of smell. Then it tended to be, the fatigue increased, the joint stuff increased, the gut stuff increased. So by the time I got down to the gut, I thought, it's too late now. You've just ignored all that. So I started to try and make some interventions for myself much earlier. So that's worked well. And just trusting and feeling comfortable saying, no. Yes, that sounds fine. I'd like to do that. I'll let you know on the day. And feeling quite comfortable with that.
Just those normal, boring, everyday things. It can bring on a crash. And if it's early on, you just need to rest and get a good support network around you. Don't try and do it on your own. Ask for help. I think realising that you need help and asking for it was really a good thing.
I think it's important that when you're learning to live with long COVID, as people have learned to live with ME, that you realise what you're able to manage and what you're not able to manage. From the survey data, then virtually everybody said that either mental or physical activity exacerbated their symptoms, which again is very similar to ME, real parallels there. But we do know from ME research that any level of activity, whether it be physical, whether it be mental, whether it be emotional activity or stress, can knock people back, can really be a challenge in terms of being able to get through the day often. So I think it's very important that people know that mental activity is a real activity.
Some people may find physical exertion makes their symptoms worse. For others, mental or emotional activities utilise more energy. It's also worth noting that one trigger rarely comes alone. For example, a simple phone call requires physical exertion, muscles for talking, mental exertion, thinking, social interaction, another person to relate to, emotional energy, depending on the topic, and maybe environmental factors such as background noise, all of which take energy. The main key to reducing your symptoms and improving your quality of life is to avoid PEM as often as you can, which you can do by tracking your symptoms and knowing your baseline. So how do you find your baseline? A quick reminder, your baseline is the amount of energy or spoons that you can spend in a day without your symptoms getting worse. The best way to find your baseline is to write a list of everything you can do easily that doesn't cause fatigue or other symptoms to get worse. Then write a list of what does make your symptoms worse. A baseline is going to be different for everyone, so try not to compare yourself to others or what you used to be able to do. Look at what's important to you now. For you, a baseline might be simply having a shower and then resting for the remainder of the day. For others, it might be a 10-minute walk and some light housework. And for some, it might be doing 3 hours of work, having coffee with a friend, and making dinner, all with periods of rest in between.
How I exercise, if I exercise, how I do just normal housework. When they first told me that I had to only do 15-minute spurts, I thought they were joking until I tried it. And it takes me, what used to take me an hour to do my housework would probably take me 5 or 6 hours. You'll be surprised how quickly that you start burning up, and then you get really tired, and then you sit down, and before you realise it, you're having to re-energise yourself again all over.
Once you have your baseline, we want you to use the 4 Ps to pace, plan, prioritise, and include some pleasure. Pace, you already know about. Planning means looking at the activities for the day and planning rest in between them. Prioritising is looking at what is the most important thing or things you need to do each day, and not beat yourself up if you don't get everything done. And lastly, when you can and know you're able to, try to do something every day that gives you pleasure and makes you happy. It's important to note that the 4 Ps are not about setting goals and then pushing through to achieve them, even if you do feel well. The 4 Ps allow your body to function within the energy it has available, like the battery power in the mobile phone that doesn't charge properly that I talked about in video 2. The aim is to make a very gradual and flexible return to activities, and this will look different for everyone and will depend on your life situation and how bad your symptoms are.
I have to decide, make decisions about what I'm going to do and not do. I have to plan very carefully for things.
Eventually, as I've gathered data and resources about my functionality, I've just had to say, if it's not really important and if it's not going to be to my or some of my close family members' benefit, I'm just not going to do it anymore. My data now shows that I'm functional, and this is including meals and going to the supermarket and everything. I've got functional time between 14 and 18 hours a week. So if I want to make that time as valuable as I can, get as much out of it as I can, then I have to pretty much say no to everything else. And that means that I have a very strict diary. I plan my weeks ahead, sometimes 2 or 3 weeks ahead. And if what I'm doing doesn't fit within that 14 to 16 hours, then I don't do it. And if it's going to be over, then I know I'm going to suffer, or I might not even be able to do the things that I say I'm going to do.
A great tip is to look at the list of things you find more difficult or that use a lot of energy and develop strategies to reduce how hard they are. For example, you might find grocery shopping tiresome, so try shopping online or only shopping fortnightly. If cooking wears you out, try making a larger quantity meal that you can then keep or freeze so that you have meals for several days. Once you know your baseline and are using the 4 Ps, you can slowly introduce new activities to see what you can still manage without making your symptoms worse. It's really important to mention exercise here. For most health conditions, exercise is recommended, and in general, exercise is good for you. However, for post-viral fatigue, or if you get PEM, exercise or pushing through your symptoms or exhaustion is not the way to get better. In fact, it's most likely to make your symptoms worse. I learned this the hard way, so remember to be kind to yourself, listen to your body, and take the time that you need to rest.
If this virus is clotting our blood, exercise is never going to work for anyone. Until we have that tool to measure your blood is flowing perfectly well and you're back to your baseline and that there's no danger at all, it's going to be a tricky thing to manage. It's really sad hearing cases where the advice has been the wrong advice, and they'll get fine, just gradually exercise, and it's done the reverse and made them housebound. We have heard of that happening.
If you do want to get back into some exercise, you need to make sure it's within your baseline and doesn't cause PEM or make your symptoms worse. Remember, there can be a delayed response too, so watch out for this. To get back into exercise can take a while, and it may not be what your body needs at the time, as rest is really important.
I know that there are a lot of people who are sort of somewhat resistant to the idea of people getting back into exercise, for example, but I think that exercise is really beneficial for long COVID if it's done at a very, very basic level. So I approach it in exactly the same way as I do with my chronic fatigue patients. We might start with, okay, tomorrow we're going to do 1 push-up, 1 squat, and 1 table row. That's it. What we're basically doing is starting at a level that is so ridiculously easy, it's doable, there's not a lot of time impact, but more importantly, we're not putting the body under any need for reactive stress, right? When we go in and push ourselves too hard, that's the issue. Because we push ourselves too hard, the body thinks must be survival. So it's going to allow us to do that, but then we're going to crash. Whereas if it's well within ourselves and we start to build slowly back to our tolerable level, in effect what we're doing is building back resilience. We're also helping to support muscle, get our insulin sensitivity back.
After the second time I got COVID, it took me a while to get back into my gym routine. I basically had to listen to my body. Like sometimes I'd go to the gym, turn up and shoot 40 goals, and then I'd be tired, so I'd go home and have a rest. And just gradually, sort of see how I'm feeling each day and build up slowly to, shooting 100 goals and then doing a swim afterwards. But it probably took me a good year to sort of get back to a place where I was pre the second time I caught COVID.
Now we've talked about increasing activities, it's important to talk about warning signs. Some people can get warning signs that show that they are starting to overdo things and need to rest. These can include worsening pain, muddling of words from brain fog, headaches or blurred vision. If at any stage you get a warning symptom, stop, rest, reduce your activity, and make a note of the symptoms and activity in your tracking sheet. Others may not get any warning signs and just have worsened symptoms the next day. In this case, planning rest breaks between activities is really important.
I've had to learn how to manage these symptoms and recognise the cues. So when my system is struggling and going, starting to buzz, starting to get a headache, my sore throat gets worse, things like that, I have to stop.
Resting regularly is important, whether you get warning signs or not. Pacing can take a while to work out, And even when you think you have it all down or have been doing it a long time, it's still easy to make mistakes.
It's a 4-letter word, rest, is the message for people who think they might have long COVID. But I think it's most likely that many people with long COVID are just battling through. They may have made some adjustments in their life, but for whatever reason, and a lot of them are very necessary in terms of finances and that sort of thing, they're just putting up with that debilitating fatigue and just not being the smart on it person that they used to be. So if it's possible, let yourself recover.
Obviously just resting, that is the number one thing that will help, is resting. And so I actually spend a good portion of the day in bed, and it used to be all day up until probably a couple of weeks ago, where I felt enough energy to come and sit on the couch.
So it was about more like 9 or 10 months before I thought, I'm just going to stop everything. Nothing is working, and rest. So I rested for about 18 hours a day and didn't do very much in the other 6 hours a day. And I think that 6 weeks was quite a big turnaround for me. We knew we had to rest, but I didn't know really what resting was. I'd never given myself that amount of time before. And from there on, I started improving and gathering my fitness back over the next year, 15 months, and then I got COVID again. So that's all gone.
When we say rest, we mean lying flat without too much stimulus. Even scrolling through Facebook on your phone uses mental energy. A useful tip is to break your main activity for the day into smaller tasks, taking frequent rest breaks in between. Switching between a physical and mental task can also help some people. If you're cooking a meal, chop the veggies, then rest. Make the marinade, and then rest. Cook the rice, and then rest. Fry the stir-fry, then eat, then rest, before doing the dishes. An international ME/CFS doctor visiting New Zealand once remarked, "Most of my patients can't work out for 30 minutes a day, but most can work out for 3 minutes 10 times a day." Put another way, they can do 30 minutes of exercise as long as it's broken up. This applies to all sorts of activities that use energy.
I can only go on a computer for about half an hour. I can't work, but I still do some admin work for my husband and do his accounts. What used to take me a few hours now takes me a week, because I find probably an hour and a half to 2 hours of that a day is enough, and I have to do it in 40-minute increments with 40 minutes on, half an hour off, 40 minutes on, half an hour off.
If there's an activity or event you really want to go to, that you maybe can't break into smaller tasks, be proactive and rest beforehand, and then schedule enough time to rest and recover afterwards. Working all this out can take time, so don't expect to nail it all right away. Keep tracking everything to make things easier, and don't be too hard on yourself. It's perfectly normal to feel upset when you can't do the things you used to be able to do, especially the things that you love the most. And it's normal to feel frustrated when you're not making progress.
I think it's fair to say that the effect of long COVID on people's ability to live their usual lives, in terms of their social impact and in terms of their emotional impact, was really huge. So many people talked about having to learn to live a new life, learn to cope with this new identity. And as a result of that, the levels of mental distress that we saw were really high. So when I say distress, I mean either anxiety or depression or both.
In video 7, on the nervous system, emotions and stress, we korero about the tools and a structure to help you manage the feelings and emotions that you might experience with long COVID. So in conclusion, the golden rule is to not spend more energy than you have. While it can take a while to work out, finding your baseline and pacing can help you avoid PEM, reduce your symptoms, and give you more control of how you feel. It's about living your life as best you can. It's not about giving up, but rather going slow for now. Remember, it was the tortoise, not the hare, that won the race. So pace like a tortoise. Ngā mihi, and thank you for watching. Please do get in touch if you have any questions, and if you found this video helpful, please share it.